What is up, Utah fans? This is Joseph back with the Utah Utes Football Digest. And I know we did a live show the other day, but I wasn't able to have all the different guys that make content for the channel join us that day. So I decided to do another one, bring more guys on, get more opinions from informed guys. So super excited to do that today. If you haven't already, like the video, comment down below, guys. I'd love to hear your opinions on the game. And as I ask these questions to my fellow content contributors, make sure you guys chime in as well. And please share this video somewhere, guys. Honestly, the super chats are so awesome, but I think you guys don't understand how awesome it is when you guys share it. That goes so far for this channel. It really does. I just ate some chicken parm, so. and finally, guys, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you don't already know, this is the spot for Utah Utes football content, so make sure you guys keep tuning it in. First guy, let's go ahead and bring on is going to be Brian Ankrum, San Antonio Ute. What is up, Brian? How are you, man?
Doing great. How are you all doing?
I'm doing awesome, man. I'm excited to be having you on. So I'm excited to talk a little football tonight. Let's also go ahead and bring on Larry Pilgrim. Larry, how are you tonight, man?
Good, guys. How are you fellas?
Dude, so good. So excited to be here talking Utah Utes football. I am a Jets fan, a pretty hardcore Jets fan for pro football. So if you guys see me cry tonight after that Aaron Rodgers injury, you'll know why. So that's
it's not good.
Yeah. We'll talk Utes. I don't even want to talk about that right now. So let's go ahead.
You got Zach Wilson. You're good to go.
I wish I believed you. All right, let's go ahead and dive in. Brian, why don't you go ahead and start us off, man? Talk about your initial thoughts from the game. How are you feeling a couple days out after reflecting? How are you feeling?
Yeah, so obviously this game was an offensive struggle for 3.5 quarters, really. The whole interchanging of quarterbacks, not even within drives, within series, within drives. I think that really took away a lot of the momentum and the rhythm of the offense. And the fact that Bryson Barnes just really didn't have it that day. You know, sometimes the quarterback's not going to have it. It especially is the case, you know, with backup quarterbacks. Very pleased with what I saw from Nate Johnson. There was a different zip on his ball versus Bryson's. I was actually at the game, so I was able to see it live, and then I rewatched it.
How was that crowd, dude? I heard we were pretty loud out there.
Crowd was great. Take away the Baylor student section, I would just be willing to bet that it was 1-to-1 Ute to Baylor fans. I think with the loss last week against Texas State, and then the 11 a.m. game with the heat, I just think the Baylor fans weren't as motivated to get there. So there was a lot of open seats, but the Utah fans came out in force. I was pleasantly surprised at the amount of fans that did make this trip. And man, when Bishop intercepted that pass with, you know, 1:30 something left, that place erupted. And rewatching the video, you could hear it. It sounded almost like a home game. It was unbelievable. And kudos to our fan base.
What a moment, dude, when Bishop picked off that pass. What a cool moment. When Bishop picked off that pass, dude. What an awesome. I feel like we all probably jumped up a little there. I jumped off my couch when that would happen, dude. That was awesome.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great moment. I mean, I all think we thought that the game was pretty much in our hands at that point, given the location that it was picked off. But you know, it's one thing I was going to talk about a little later. But you know, how about Lander Barton? He's the one who absolutely annihilated the quarterback that caused that errant throw across the middle, fell right into Bishop's chest, basically. So we'll talk a lot more about that and the defense specifically on this show, but very pleased to be 2-0 at this point. If the majority of the fan base was thinking if Cam wasn't in for the first, 2-3 games before we go into conference. I saw people throwing out 1-2, 2-1. Very few people throwing out a 3-0, and most of that due to getting beat by Baylor. A lot of assumptions were that would be a really tough game, and it was. But to persevere like they did and come out 2-0 at this point with a lot of our injured starters, slated to return later in the season, I really am excited about what this team can do moving forward.
No, those are awesome thoughts, man. I think a lot of us are super excited. Coming at it like with all the adversity that came our way in these first two games, to come out 2-0 is a pretty awesome statement about this team and about where we're going this year. Larry, let's have you jump in, man. How'd you feel about the game? How are you feeling a couple days later? What'd you think?
Oh, relieved. I mean, I think I lost 3 months off my life first half.
Yeah.
That was, I knew we were going to get their best punch. I remember us talking about it, and it was just like, we're going to get their best punch coming out. They're going to play with their hair on fire, like their season depends on this game. And actually, I think they exerted a little too much energy in the first half, because in the presser, when they brought up, I think one of the linebackers at the game presser afterwards was asked, how come, what happened in the fourth quarter? And he said, we ran out of energy. And so it was a little hard to see from the TV screen if that's what was going on, but I guess we just outpunched them in the end. Lander Barton. Was that like a 3rd and 16 when Cole got that pick?
Yes.
See, I was feeling really good because I was thinking it's 3rd and 16. We've got 2 timeouts. There's like a minute and a half left. Like, we're going to get a chance to win this game with a field goal. We're going to have to drive the field. So it was just so nice to see Bishop get us in field goal range right off the get. They completely changed. I remember when they got on their first offensive set, I was looking at their line of scrimmage and I went, they don't have one guy other than the center playing in the same position that they had that we broke down. They literally moved tackles, kicked the one guy out, and I think they made some really good adjustments. Happy to get the hell out of there with a win. And you could see Nate Johnson, those last 2 drives, like, he didn't care if he was going to lose his job. He stood in there and was just like, I'm throwing it. And he did it. Because Mike Matthews was open 75% of the game from what I could see. Our slot position, that guy was playing off the whole game. So is that what you could see? San Antonio was the slot guy just completely off every play?
It
playing
was.
It
was open the majority of the game. Early on, we had some bad reads. We had, Baylor, credit to them, had quite a bit of pressure up front, so that eliminated some of that. But yeah, it was definitely there for the taking. We got Sick'em Bears in the chat right now, trolling pretty hard. Maybe a closet BYU fan, because all the Baylor fans that I ran into at the game, they were all great. I didn't hear a single person complaining about that last play that he's referring to, but I thought it was a good. Why don't
we talk about that for a second? I actually would love to hear your guys' opinions about that last play. But let's start with you, San Antonio, since you're the one talking right now. How did you feel about that last play?
I thought it was a great no call. They were both turned facing the ball. He did not pull down on any arms. Initially his left arm was over the Baylor receiver's left arm, but it slid right under, and he just kind of had his hand kind of on his belly, and they both jumped for the ball at the same time. There were similar plays like that all game that never got called in the defensive secondary. They didn't throw a single flag in the secondary for either team. They let them play.
Yeah, it was all game. It was they played rough on both secondaries. Like both.
Yeah, Mikey Matthews. Yeah. Mikey Matthews got abused down the right side on a 3rd and long. that could have easily been called, but it was kind of the same deal. The Baylor defender was also turned around and there was a lot of bumping and they didn't call it. And you know what? I'm glad they didn't call either one of those. But that would have been a first down giving Utah the ball in the red zone. And instead, we ended up turnover on downs on that one. That next throw, the turnover was the next throw to Yasmin that was way off the mark. So, they let them play a little bit in the secondary. There was nothing really egregious that took place that whole game. There was bumping and there was fighting, but every time the defender was also going for the ball. Their head was turned to the ball with the receiver. So you got to let them play.
Yeah, they let them play rough the whole game. It was never in. Larry, I want to hear your thoughts and then I'll give mine. But what do you think about that final play, the no call?
Oh, that final no call was like watching a basketball. The flop. Yeah. He flopped. Like San Antonio was saying there, when they both went to jump for the ball, his left arm was not impeded at all when they both went to jump, but he didn't lift his left arm. Yeah. As to act like he was, it was a flop. It was a good no call, and I don't know why you would give them another chance. And that's the other thing, is that's not the reason they lost. And even if they call that, they're not going to spot it at the 2 because it was too far out. So now they're going to have to throw it in the end zone from 20 yards out, and then they're going to have to So that wasn't what cost them the game. Now here's the other call that really, to me, is blatantly incorrect. So when Pittman caught that punt, he didn't even barely take one step.
They were saying he made a football move. Yeah, he was just starting to move and he got lit up.
So if that's not a defenseless player and he was a runner, the guy that caught the ball completely turned his body 180 degrees. Was not a runner, or was incomplete? Like that, to me, that was a hypocritical call. Like if you were going to say Pittman caught that ball and was a runner and there was no targeting on that one that we got the fumble where Lander just drilled that guy. How that doesn't make sense. If you look, that guy turned 180 degrees.
Yeah.
So I think the refs were pretty bad in this game.
Yeah, I actually, following up on that, I agreed with a lot of what you guys said on the no call. It felt like they went up for the ball, and it was a very physical play on the ball by Miles Battle, but he was going for the ball. That's really the number one thing at the end of the day, was the defender going for the ball, and he was, and he made the play. So good for him. Definitely a questionable one. It was a close one, but I thought it was the right call, even at the moment watching it live. So I agreed with that. So the other thing was, like you talked about, some of the refereeing in that game was a little ridiculous. The holding calls we got, I mean, was I the only one sitting there like, what happened? Like they'd show the replay back and I'd be sitting there thinking, what did you want him to do? Like, how was he supposed to make this block? Well, give me your thoughts, San Antonio.
They called a couple on Lomea that were just pathetic. I mean, if you want to call holding, you can call holding every single play, but some of these were just absolute ticky-tack. One that comes to mind was on Mocha Fisi towards the end of the game on JJ's run into the end zone. Dude, JJ was 5 yards by him at that point. If you're a referee, how do you throw that flag when it has no impact on the actual play itself?
Yeah.
There was nothing that could be done. He was already by him. The guy turned to release. Moko didn't quite release in time, and it might have been a hold, but that's just a tough one to call as a ref.
Yeah, for me, that was probably the only holding call that I felt was justified, like just watching the game. I feel like Mocha Fisi had another one that was in the trenches that was a really bad call. And then you're right, Laumea had a couple. I think there was 3 penalties on Mocha Fisi. I was looking at it the other day. I could actually pull it up, but I think there was 3 penalties on Mocha Fisi, and then there was 2 penalties on Laumea. which was odd. I don't know why they focused on those guys so much. But Larry, what do you think about the holding penalties?
Yeah, I agree. The one at the very end where JJ ran in, I mean, I can kind of see they're going to call that because they're going to call that, especially with some of the other crap they've been calling. The other ones were, what were we? We were like a 3rd and 7 or something, and we picked up the first down, or 2nd and 10 or something. And they called, that was the one RG3 said that was pretty ticky tacky. He was even like, what? So
yeah, that was that Money Parks jet sweep, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I don't know about you guys, but the whole time I just felt like we shouldn't the refs shouldn't even matter here. We should be kicking the crap out of Baylor.
Yeah.
So at one point I almost was like, why are we even putting in ourselves in a position to have the refs involved? Like, so I don't know how you guys felt, but during the game I was so disappointed.
No, let's move on
like,
to that, Larry. Let's start talking about that. I'm with you 100%, man.
Yeah.
I really was opinionated on Twitter. I was getting very frustrated watching this game. I just couldn't believe how bad the play calling was. And I'm excited to hear your guys' opinions. Honestly, it felt like even with everything, even with Bryson playing terribly bad, we should have been up by 2 scores in that game. Honestly, to me, it felt like Ludwig or whoever was in charge of the offensive play calling, almost like I was at a point where I was getting conspiratorial. Like, do they not want us to win? I mean, what is going on here? I want to get your guys' thoughts. How'd you feel about the play calling? I know I was super frustrated. Larry, let's go to you first.
It took me back to the Travis Wilson days when it was just ground and pound, and we're going to win with defense and win it in the trenches. And Kyle Whittingham does handcuff Andy Ludwig. He does. He'll say, "This is our game plan. We can beat him in the trenches." And so I think he was just handcuffed, and finally, just at the end, I think Kyle took the cuffs off. That's what I think happened.
Well, let's hope so, because it was frustrating to watch. San Antonio?
Yeah, one thing, I mean, I mentioned it already, but I did not like seeing quarterbacks interchanged, one play to the next. Nate Johnson's first throw down the middle, he hit Baylor for 25 yards, and then immediately came out of the game. I mean, what are we doing? He just threw a laser, looked poised, calm, collected in the pocket, and threw a rope to him, and then came out of the game, and we settled for 3 on that possession. So I just didn't like continuously doing that. Nobody could ever get a hot hand, and if they did have a hot hand the previous play, they were out. It was very confusing. I know Whittingham has this mentality, especially with backups, that he wants to play the one who is going to be the most conservative and safe with the ball. But Bryson Barnes was not safe with the ball. We all saw the interception. We saw the errant throws. That he should have had multiple interceptions that game. And Nate Johnson was on point. He had one incompletion, and that was that throw to JJ on the goal line, where three defenders followed him, and Landon King was wide open in the center of the end zone, right in front of him. So, as he sees that on film, he'll start getting better at reading that. So he very well could have been 7 for 7 with a touchdown this game. So that part I was very pleased, but just rotating them constantly was not a good idea. And he talked about it last week. That's what was confusing. In the pressers this week, he said he didn't feel like he did a good job rotating them in and out versus Florida because he felt like it took them out of their groove. Well, and he said he was going to work on it, but this was worse. It was actually worse than last week.
No, I'm with you. And my thing is, I want to, as we talk about this, I feel like these two topics are super closely related. And this is what I'm talking about when I say the play calling confused me. I agree on a lot of stuff you're saying too, San Antonio, about the switching out the quarterbacks. I'd say more than anything, it just felt like, whether you think Bryson was is not what we thought he was, or you just think he was having a bad day, whatever it was, it felt like you did not want the ball in his hands. It was like maybe early second quarter, it started to become evident that, like, hey, let's go a different direction, dude. This is not working. And for some reason, it felt like Ludwig had a plan that he was going to have Bryson Barnes have a field day throwing the ball, and it wasn't working out, or whoever's plan it was, whether it was Witt or Andy, whatever, and he just would not back away from it. It was crazy for me to watch. And I just want to give you guys some stats here. So if you look at our rushing attack, I'm going to put the stats up on the screen here. I shared it in the last video, but I want to share this with you guys too, because I think it's worth looking at. So if we look at the stats here, so we had in total 47 carries for 224 yards with our rushing attack. But I want to show you guys something. If you take away the wide receiver reverse by Micah Pittman, and you take away the rushes by the quarterbacks, which I didn't love running Nate up the gut every damn play either. If you take all that away, our 3 running backs that got carries this game had 27 carries for 173 yards, averaging 6.4 yards a carry. And that was even considering some of these cutesy outside runs he was trying to do that weren't working. If we were running it up with the gut, I believe we were actually averaging like 6.5 to 7 yards. I don't have the stat in front of me, but it felt like we were running up the gut at will, and we could pound the rock as much as we wanted to. But for some reason, we kept going back to the pass. I can't even tell you how many drives where we would just pound the rock. Yeah.
You got a commercial plan.
But I don't think I can.
Oh, sorry about that. Thanks for cutting me off.
I'd love to tell you, but I don't think I can.
Marty, in theaters
That happens all the damn time, dude.
Latest kick time in the history of Auburn football. So if you're back
all right, anyways, though. Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah, but we were running the ball, Will, and I can't tell you how many drives we would pound the rock for a first down or 2 first downs, right? We get multiple first downs. And then Bryson freaking Barnes would come out and shotgun, obviously going to throw the ball, not even like a play action, like any deception. And it would be so obvious, and it would just kill the entire drive. Like he'd get sacked or something would happen, and then it'd be 2nd and 15. We can't run anymore. And then the whole drive's over. I mean, how did you guys feel about the rushing attack? Just watching the game. Just give me your thoughts. Go for it, San Antonio.
Yeah, I thought we should have continued pounding it right down their throats, run that inside zone rush to the right side. The right side was their weak spot. I felt, I don't know. We did pretty good on the left too. I'd have to rewatch that, so I can't really say either way on that. But right and left side of the guards, I think, was our best approach. We had a lot of openings. It wasn't every play. You're never going to have that every play, but that is where we seem to thrive. I agree with the cute trying to stretch the field runs was not working against that nickel D, but they did line up. They did line up a 5-man front quite a bit that game. I did notice that against this Utah offense. They expected us to run, but we had a good plan up the middle to either side. Jaquindon Jackson's very tough to stop. He's so strong, so powerful. He's shifty, so he has a good first move and he hits the hole hard. He can push the pile. We watched it, to start the second half. He had back-to-back runs. First one was for 11 where he pushed the entire pile, and then our offensive line got in and pushed it for a first down. The very next play, he went to the other side, did the exact same thing for 9 yards. Jalen Glover was the same way. I thought he had a really good game. This, probably his best game as a Ute, with the defense that was in front of us. He's had some other games. I think he last year he had a pretty good game against Southern Utah, but against a Power 5 D.
Southern Utah yards only matter for BYU fans, dude. It's the only one who cares how they do against Southern Utah.
But yeah, I think we should have continued with that. It would have completely opened everything up.
Yep.
With some of that play action game, which was fairly non-existent for us. We were going in shotgun when we would go to pass, a lot of the time, like you were talking about. So there could have been some things that were done better. I think we go into this conservative mode sometimes and expect the defense to pull these games out, which, luckily they did, but we're not going to win every game like that. And this is exactly how you lose the games that you're not supposed to.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's how I felt. It felt I kept playing in my head like, hey, our defense cannot just shut out every team we play. Like, we can lean on our defense. We obviously have an amazing defense, but it is unrealistic to expect our defense to hold every team to under 15 points. Like, eventually we will, and you guys probably already know there's some awesome offenses in the Pac-12. There are some of these offenses that if we think we're holding them to under 15 points, we're out of our minds, right? Like, they're going to score. So, Larry, how'd you feel about this, the Russian offense and kind of the play calling based around that? How'd you feel?
So I felt like we were having good runs, but where we were having the good runs, and I don't know if you guys noticed, I started noticing about probably 10th, 15th carry. Our timing is way off. So you would have either Nate or Barnes back there, 7-yard drop, and Glover or Jackson would be way behind. I mean, and it wasn't quick. Like, there's just the timing to hit the holes. We were so late that the offensive line wasn't holding their blocks long enough. So to me, that was an issue. And I think hopefully I think they picked up on it, because later down the road, it seemed like we were going under center a little more. And I think our running game is really good. I just think we're so used to Cam. Cam is so good and quick with those handoffs in the backs, that those holes, just the timing is really good. Our running game timing was off. And then we'd get holds even when it was on. So, but I agree. We were having success if we were under center, or we were a little more compact between center to the back. We were doing really good with the zone blocking. And so Jackson I think he was awesome. You could tell he was hurt. Did you guys notice that first big run he had? Normally he wouldn't slow down. That guy would just keep going. I think he's still nicked up. So
yeah,
I think he did good.
It was an awesome job by him, dude. Just kind of, it was obvious he was in pain sometimes or cramping or something, and he just toughed it out, dude. And I think he knew about early midway point of this game that he was what was going to win us this game. And he was like, all right, I can't not be in the game. Hey, I just wanted to put this on the screen and kind of show you guys, just following up about the running game, some PFF grades here. So take a look. If you look at the top, I sorted this by run blocking grade. 83.4 for Laumea run blocking, 75.1 for Keaton Bills, 72.2 for Moko Fisi, 71.3 for Jaron Kump, and a 65.9 for Spencer Fano. So just to give you guys an idea why I'm showing this, we were run blocking really well. Like throughout as a whole throughout the game, we were run blocking really well. And then I want you to look at the associated pass blocking grades from that game. So the only decent grades are Spencer Fano and right here with Jaron Kump. The rest of our offensive line had a pretty miserable pass blocking game. I don't think those grades are they're a little exaggerated. That feels worse than what it actually was pass blocking, but it was still bad. And I just, again, find it so weird that we didn't lean stronger on the running game. It really just confused the heck out of me. All right, the next question we're going to be asking is who was the Utah offensive MVP and who was the Utah defensive MVP? Please make sure you guys comment down below who you think was the Utah offensive MVP and who was the defensive MVP. Also, make sure you like the video, share it, subscribe to the channel. Utes Productions. Dude, I'm good. Thanks for checking in, man. Who's your offensive and defensive MVP? And San Antonio, let's start with you again, man. Who's the offensive and defensive MVP?
Yeah, so the offensive MVP was pretty obvious, and it was Jaquindon Jackson. A little bit behind him, but not too far off, was Mikey Matthews as a true freshman. I mean, that kid was great, so I just wanted to throw his name out. But Jaquindon came out. He was the type of back that we saw towards the end of last season, and as Larry did mention, he did seem to be nicked up. Came out of the game a couple of times. One for sure was for cramps. The other one he got hit pretty hard, but he definitely didn't have his high end speed like he's had in the past. But he came out and he was a force. I mean, he's kind of a contact runner. You know, he likes to look for those linebackers coming in and lower his shoulders and hit them. And being 6'2", 230, he lays the wood pretty hard. So seeing that was really exciting. I like to see that those inside zone runs up, following those guards. And we did a really good job at that. And he's by far the best guy at that, but Glover's not too far behind him. But JJ, I mean, rush him for what did he have? 129 yards rushing on 19 attempts. That is exactly what we needed to see. He helped keep us alive in this game. Defensively, this is where it gets a little tough because there were two guys that were flying all over the field, and both of them were big-time impact players. I'm going to give it to Bishop here. He had the pick, and he actually had a safety blitz on Zamiah Vaughn's pick where he was about to freight train Robertson. Robertson had to get rid of the ball early, and that's why it created that errant throw that Zamiah was able to come off his receiver and intercept. And then just coming in the box and shedding some of those blockers. And I don't know, he had 2 or 3 tackles for loss. I think 2, maybe. I got it right here. 2 tackles for loss where he just completely threw the blocker to the side and made the stop on some of those runs. He was flying everywhere. It was obvious. I mean, he came ready to play. The other guy who did the exact same thing was Lander Barton. We all saw the hit that I thought should have been a fumble. We
all thought it should have been a fumble. San Antonio.
The guy turned 180, so I'm going to go to that real quick. It's not so much. It was a bang call, right? If they called it an incomplete pass on the field, then I thought it should have probably stood as an incomplete pass. They called it a fumble, and yet they overturned it without conclusive video evidence. That one just blows my mind because it was bang. It could have gone one way or the other. You're supposed to stick with the call on the field when that happens, but I digress. He came from the sideline and freight trained that dude. And he had so many hard hits all game, and he was great on his gap assignments. He was flying through the hole and stopping their running game. Every possession, I would say, I saw him flying around making tackles. He also had the quarterback pressure, like I said, on the last interception. Man, he hit the quarterback hard. I was kind of worried at first. I thought it was maybe hands to the face, but then when I watched the video, he basically just wrapped him up high. Both hands were on the dude's back when he hit him, and that ball just floated right into Bishop's hands. So both of those guys, there was a lot to be excited about. I was watching that whole defensive front too. And yeah, granted, we didn't have any sacks. I thought we'd have a lot more sacks, especially with their offensive line. As bad as they were last week, they were a lot better this week. Larry mentioned it. They did mix stuff up on the right side. They were a lot more disciplined. the pass block was much better, which really surprised me. It's hard to fix an offensive line in a week, but maybe they just, maybe they just came out unmotivated against Texas State. But it also kind of goes into the game plan. Sawyer Robertson was getting the ball out. I saw, he was averaging like 2.8 seconds to pass, and Barnes was up there in the 4.5 second range. So, or actually, Robertson was 2.51, Nate Johnson was 2.5, and Barnes was up there in the 4 second range. So, yeah, just him getting rid of the ball like that, it was hard to actually get some sacks, but we still did put pressure. The run defense was a little bit sketchy to start the game. Yeah. I'm sitting here. We'll talk about defense later on, but Lander Barton and Cole Bishop, those two were dynamic, in the defense, linebacker and defensive secondary. But for me, I'm going to go ahead and give it to Bishop. He's the leader. He stepped up. He came to play.
Agreed. Larry, let's hear it from you, man. Who's the offensive and defensive MVP?
I think you got to give it to JJ just on heart. Matthews was probably one of the most dynamic guys on the field, but overall, JJ was just, he carried us. And and then defense, I'm going to give it to Bishop when they're calling your name on the telecast and they're like, hey, Baylor's under center, watch this Bishop kid. And he comes out and does something. That was pretty cool. It was like, are you guys foreshadowing? So it really was nice. I give it to Bishop. Lander Barton was awesome. I think DB's held up for most of the game. But, yeah, I'm going to give it to Bishop and JJ.
You know who deserves a shout-out? He's not going to be my offensive or defensive MVP. But Tao Johnson, check out this grade, guys. An 80.5 with an 82.4 coverage grade. Even though he had a couple big plays against Florida, he didn't grade out very, very well. I feel like he had a couple nice plays against Baylor, and he graded out really well. I think that's a really good sign moving forward. This was a pretty decent passing team heading into this game. So for him to look that way against them, that's pretty exciting. For me, the offensive MVP was clearly JJ, and the defensive MVP was clearly Cole Bishop. So I'm with you guys. Pretty unanimous across the board. Hard to argue with that. Let's go ahead and talk about some defense since we've been bringing it up. How do you guys feel about this Utah defense after the Baylor game? Obviously we've got a bunch of talent on this defense, a lot to look forward to. Like you guys said earlier, there were some concerns in the rushing defense this past game. There were some times we were like, damn, they're running at will a little bit here. There was some concerning moments, and I think we did great in the pass defense game, almost the entire game. There were a few botched plays, that sort of deal, but in general, I thought we looked good. Where are you at, Larry Pilgrim, with the Utah defense after the Baylor game? How good do you think they are?
Really good. So we were missing Karenny Reed. So we were missing the captain there in the middle. Lander's kind of the captain as well. But Levani Damuni didn't come into this program till into the summer. And so I think a little bit of our defense in this game was him getting adjusted, him and Lander, those guys all playing. I'm feeling really good about the defense. When we go up against Washington and USC, we're going to really find out what our defense is made of. But I'm feeling pretty good. I'm with you. I think Te'o's good. Battle, it's hit and miss with that guy, and I don't know if it's scheme or what, but Samaya Vaughn's doing pretty good. So I'm feeling really good about this defense. I can't wait till we get the big boy back on the line, Samote, and get O'Toole on that edge, because O'Toole was coming on really strong at the end of last year. So I'm hearing a week or two is what Kyle said for Connor. Yeah. So I feel really good about this defense.
Hey, I'm with you 100%, man. I think we just got to get a few guys back healthy, and we'll see just a whole nother level of domination. Bunch of exciting things to look forward to on this defense, like you said. San Antonio, how are you feeling after that game about the defense?
Oh man, I love this defense. I was really excited about this defense coming into the year, hearing about what they had over the summer and fall camp. With having as many starters as they do out and having having some younger guys in there, Teo being one of them, and playing as well as they have against 2 Power 5 opponents to start the year, it can't be said enough. They've missed a total of like 9 tackles for the year in 2 games so far. That's phenomenal. We missed 27 the first game last year. So the fact that they're tackling better up front is going to be great once, as Larry said, once we get Peppa back, once we get O'Toole back and healthy, and they have to acclimate a little bit because Tafuna was back this game. He was kind of a non-factor. Van Fillinger was kind of a non-factor. He's still coming back from what he said. He had mono. It's a tough illness to come back from as far as energy is concerned. So once we're back to being healthy and hopefully we remain healthy, that front is going to be a force to be reckoned with. We're not going to see the same types of offensive fronts, the rest of the year. USC's got a pretty good one. Washington, Oregon always has a good one, and Oregon State. So I guess we are going to see some pretty good ones all year. Getting them back though is going to be huge. You talked about Teo. I wanted to say something about him really quick. His closing speed is elite. I mean, when you see that guy in person come flying in, he's 5 yards off when the ball's released, and he almost picked that one. It was incredible. Watching him close in on a running back or a tight end over the middle, it's unbelievable, and the kid can hit. So I have heard he is the fastest player on our team, and it's not Nate Johnson.
I was about to say, San Antonio, there's been so much hype about Nate Johnson's speed that I think a lot of people forget about Teo Johnson. He is an elite athlete, dude. He's super athletic.
Yep, exactly. So he's just going to help with our defensive secondary and coverage. I agree with Larry. Battle, up and down a little bit. He's still getting his feet wet a little bit. I know he had last year in the SEC, but he's getting his feet wet at the cornerback position. He was a receiver, and he's constantly learning like they all are. He just got a later start at it, but he has a ton of athleticism. I think he'll be fine. He's made some great plays. There's just, the few that they get burned, and we're going to get burned, the way we play defense now and then. It's going to happen. Yeah. As long as it's not, for a touchdown, our defense tends to lock in inside the 30. Don't really need to say much about Vaki and Nate Ritchie, and then of course Cole Bishop. They're so tough back there at the safety position. The only thing is, we could be tested with their coverage because they're typically box defenders in the safety position. So it'll be interesting to see what happens against some of these teams that really air the ball out.
Yeah, speaking of coverage with our safeties, as great of a game as Cole Bishop had, I'm sure you guys know the play I'm talking about. I think it was him and Zamiah Vaughn. It was 2 of them against one of the Baylor receivers, and the guy neither one of them turns their head around and tries to do anything on the ball. And Zamiah Vaughn, my hype for him was so high going into this year. Still have very high hopes. I think he started to make some plays in this last game, loosen up a little bit. But definitely, you're right. Definitely some concerns in coverage, but I think we're all on the same page. We're expecting Utah to have a really elite defense this year. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is how we're feeling. So obviously this week we expect a dominant win over Weber State, but how are we feeling going into the rest of the season? We're about to be in conference play. I think a lot of us are super excited, and I want to break down our schedule and see where your guys' minds are at, how you think we do from here on out. We're going to go through the schedule here. I want to get your thoughts on if it's a game we win or not and why. I think that'll be a fun little exercise. And like I said, it's just based on the season we've seen so far. You don't have to marry whatever you say here. So let's go ahead and take a look. We'll start with Weber State. Just kidding, guys. Just kidding. We won't do Weber State. All right, UCLA. So UCLA is coming into Utah. Let's hear your opinions of how the game goes and why. Let's try to keep it kind of short just because we're going to break down the whole schedule here. San Antonio, let's start with you, man. How do you think the game goes against UCLA?
Yeah, I haven't seen a ton of them this year. I've caught them a little bit the first week. They're young. They got a young quarterback. They lost a lot of experience. I think they have a decent defense still from what I saw. But they're going to come into Rice Eccles. They don't typically do well. It is an afternoon game. It was announced today, 1:30 game. Utah handles them with our defense and Cam Rising's return.
Yep. Sounds good to me. Larry, what do you think? UCLA?
Yeah, I think them coming in with a young quarterback's going to be a little bit tough for them, but they've still got the Murphy boys, so hopefully we've got Cam back for that one. Yeah, I think we can win that game.
I can't imagine we don't have Cam back. I'm still waiting to see when we're going to get Brant Keithy back, but it feels quite confident we have Cam back by that game. All right, and I'm with you guys. I agree. 4-0. I think their quarterback's young. Our defense is going to be really tough for him to handle. I think we're going to make plays, and with Cam coming back, I think our offense will help even out the offensive-defensive Utah game plan a little bit. All right, now Oregon State.
Hey, Joseph, can we answer a question real quick from Dakota? Sure. Dakota said, what percentage of the playbook has been used? Do you think no tight end play, which has been a huge part of our normal game plan? I agree. They haven't really exploited the middle, and I think they were kind of trying to save some of those slot receivers and getting them a lot of film for the other teams, which is why they just continuously went to it towards the end to squeak out that win. I could be very wrong, but it kind of seemed like that. So yeah, I think we're still going to see our old tight end and slot receiver play really come into form, especially once Cam gets back.
I'm with you. All right, and now let's move on to the Oregon State game. Let's hear it from you, Larry. How do you think – I feel like this is our first real test of the year. How do you think it goes going to Oregon State to play at Reser? How do you think it goes?
I like us in this game because of the matchups. I think we can cover their receivers. I think we can get enough pressure on DJ, which he's shown. If you get pressure on him, he's just not really good. And I think we can cover their receivers, and I think we can slow down their run game. I really like us in that game. I think we're going to be an aggressive defense up there, and I think we can get that game. I just like our matchup against them. I think we just outmatch them.
Hey, that makes a lot of sense to me. San Antonio, what do you think about Oregon State? Going to Oregon State, do we pick up the win?
Yeah, I agree with Larry. That's going to be a very tough game, especially with the new renovated Reser. But they're going to try to establish the run. That's a huge part of their game. Is it Damian Martinez? Is his first name Damian? But anyways, their running back's great. Their offensive line is, it's been good for several years. They're kind of built similar to what this Utah team is. I think Utah has a much better defense than what Oregon State has, and we'll put them to the test. We really saw DJU last year, Clemson, struggle under pressure. If he gets pressure, he makes mistakes, and I think we can exploit that.
Hey, that makes a lot of sense to me. I think Oregon State will have Cam back. We'll, have a game of conference play under his belt. I do think it is a dangerous game, right? It wouldn't be the first time we lost at Reser with Cam. But I think we absolutely can win this game, and hopefully we can tighten up a little bit of our run defense before we get out there. All right, now Cal, this should be a pretty consensus pick heading into Cal. We've all got them 5-0. San Antonio, how do we do against Cal?
Cal is surprising this year. Cal doesn't look bad. They have a pretty good defense, and they're putting up points. They have a really good running back. They are overmatched by this Utah team. They have a better team this year, but they still are not going to match us offensively or defensively. We win this game by a couple scores.
Sounds good to me. Larry?
Yeah, I actually watched the Cal-Auburn game, and that line their offensive line just caved. The more they had to, the longer the game went on, Cal was in control, but their offensive line just struggled against Auburn. And Auburn just finally overmatched them, and I think we'll do the same thing.
I'm with you 100%, Larry. I share almost the exact same sentiment. I watched the Auburn game as well, and I was actually excited for Cal. I had a lot of hype behind Cal going into this year, and after seeing how much that offensive line got dominated by that Auburn defensive line, the hype died a lot. And I also think where we're probably going to struggle the most is against really good run blocking offensive lines. Like, that's just my guess early in the season. And Cal definitely doesn't have that. I think it'll be like San Antonio said, we win by a couple scores in this game. I would actually say this could be a pretty dominant win if you ask me. All right, and here's a big one. A lot of people have circled on the Utah schedule. We have USC. Utah headed to the Coliseum. Larry, what do you think? Can Utah pull it off 6-0 heading into this game?
If USC beats Notre Dame, we win. If they lose to Notre Dame, we lose. I honestly think that USC is going to split between us and Notre Dame. I think the mentality part for USC is what's going to come into play, coming off a game against a really good Notre Dame. And so I think if they get the win at Notre Dame, I think they're going to be exhausted. I'm saying they're going to split. That may sound odd, but that's where I'm at with that game.
I'm with you 100%. I think there's a good shot we lose one of Oregon State and USC, where you're looking at it from how USC does before this. I'm kind of looking at it from the Utah perspective. How do we do before this game? Where if we're 6-0 heading into this game, I think there's a good chance this is a loss, because then they're the underdog, or at least even, right? Where if we lost to Oregon State and then we're going to USC, we're clearly the underdog, and I could see us having a chip on our shoulder and making that happen. San Antonio, what do you think, man?
Yeah, that's something that I hadn't really thought about, with them playing Notre Dame right before. It might be one of those games where if they beat them, it's on a last second play or even just a close game, that maybe some of that emotional energy doesn't come with them on the next game. I have a hard time believing that, because given the past 3 matchups, and they've got this game circled, I never would pick for Utah to lose a game. If I had to pick one, it would be this game, probably, just because of how they are emotionally coming into this game. Maybe they're overhyping themselves too. Maybe they play out of their minds in a not so good way, make a lot of mistakes. That's always a potential also. If they play the way they played the last couple weeks, it's going to be a tough team to beat.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think for me, the way the dominant win they had against Stanford was pretty impressive. Not that Stanford's anything special, but to beat them 56-10, that's a pretty dominant win. That's like you're playing an FCS team sort of score. So I think you definitely got to keep an eye on them and their danger for Utah, in my eyes, in the USC game went up a little. And I also think USC's defense looked a little better in that game. Yeah. So I think one of their weaknesses looked pretty good in that game. So
can we answer one more question again?
Yeah, you want to answer this UT fly fisherman?
Yeah. I was talking to him earlier in Twitter and was telling him we were having this, but he was asking me, what the vibe was at the game, how the fans were. The Baylor fans were great. I talked to a ton of them. They had no issues with any Utah fans. I know there was this whole Twitter thing with the Big 12 coming in, but yeah, they're excited to have us in the Big 12. From everyone that I actually met and interacted with, they were nothing but great. And they know that Utah is a dangerous team year after year. So they were looking forward to it. They were excited. They were talking about how great our fan base was.
That's awesome, dude.
As in people wise, and showing up to the game and creating a ton of noise. So that was awesome. We didn't really talk. We talked about that a little bit, but I didn't talk about the Big 12 aspect. So yeah, that was a good question.
Yeah, they also seem to have a pretty good student section considering the game against Texas State. I mean, they seem like a real similar to Utah, where they just, they really take a lot of pride in their college football. All right, next team, Oregon coming into Utah to play the Utes at Rice-Eccles. San Antonio, how do you feel about this one?
I feel good. Watching Oregon go to Texas Tech last week, I feel pretty good about it. They had their struggles just like we did. They've historically had some struggles in Salt Lake City. They've also played well, but it was usually when Utah was down where they kind of snuck a win in Rice-Eccles. But I mean, nobody will forget 2021, and I just think that's probably gonna be another night game. I would only imagine, probably a primetime slot on ESPN again. So if we're healthy and we have our full offense back and flowing, especially if we can get Keithy back. I know there's a lot of rumors going around today. I don't know if anybody saw them, but they're saying Keithy might be sitting all year. Until that's actually announced, I'm not gonna believe it, because I had not heard that. So until it's actually announced, I'm not gonna believe it. But if we can have our full offensive package, with Cam, tight ends, slot receivers are going to be good. Vele should be back into primetime Vele mode with Cam at the helm, and our defense is not going anywhere. So I really like us in that game. We got to get a little redemption after last year, where we were, both quarterbacks were banged up for both teams, but we really should have had that game and blew it at the end. So we got them again this year.
Hey, I'm with you 100%, man. I think we have this game circled just as much as USC has us circled. So I think we're excited, and I want to hear Larry's first, then I'll give my take. But go for it, Larry. What do you think about the Oregon game?
I think we're going to have a really good advantage against their O-line at home. We're going to be able to get that muss going, and I think we're going to get the jumps on them, and I think we're just going to make Bo Nix look like the bad Bo Nix. I think he's going to have his worst game at Utah. So I think we get that one.
I like it. Good stuff. All right. And then with that, let's move on to the next game. We are looking at Arizona State coming to Utah. Oh, I also want to just touch on Oregon real quick because I didn't really give my take on it. I think it is really tough to beat Utah at home. I think this year the fan base, if Florida is any reflection of the rest of the year, this fan base is coming out so strong that I don't think anyone's beaten us this year at Rice-Eccles. So that'll give you a little preview of how I think the rest of the season will go. No one's beaten us at Rice-Eccles. So that's where I'm at. Larry, tell us how you think we do against the mighty, mighty Sun Devils.
This is going to be a great Nate Johnson second half. That's about all I got to say for that game.
Yeah, they don't look too great. So, yeah. San Antonio?
Yeah, Arizona's down this year. They've got hit with some sanctions where they're not bowl eligible. They have nothing to fight for. They do have a new good young head coach in Dillingham, but it's not their year. They're just too down.
Can you imagine being Kenny Dillingham and knowing that your program is not going to allow you to go to a bowl and trying to motivate these guys. I mean, damn, tough job he's got this year. All right, and then the next game, we've got Utah heading to Washington. I think we all agree there's a really good chance we're either 8-1 or 9-0, something like that. San Antonio, why don't you start us off? Does Utah pull off the win against Washington?
Yeah, this one's going to be a tough one. This is where it's going to expose our defensive weaknesses the most in the defensive secondary. Michael Penix Jr. is unreal, and they got Odunze. They've got help me out. What's the other receiver?
Polk, McMillan.
McMillan, yeah.
Yes, McMillan. I mean, they are electric
Stacked,
in the passing game. So the whole goal is going to be to slow that down. If you can't slow it down, then you're probably going to have a tough time winning, because defensively they're not that bad either. They're not one of the top defenses in the league, but they can hold their own, and they're going to be an extremely tough team to play in that environment. You know, it's probably going to be one of those rainy, cold Seattle games that time of year. So it'd be, which, you know what, that may help us a little bit, help slow down some of that offensive passing game that they got rolling right now. But if we can do that, we can win the game. No doubt in my mind. If we can slow that down, put some pressure on Penix, we win the game. If we don't, we will not win.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough offense to slow down. And that, I agree, huge key to the game. We can't stop them. Just like USC, you're not going to stop this offense, but can you limit them a little bit? Larry, what are your thoughts against Washington? Do we pull off the win?
I don't. This is the one that I think that this is the one that gets us, and it's just because Husky Stadium. I don't know if somebody can round up Marie Laveau. We don't have any luck. I mean, I know we got 2019, we came out of there with a win. We lucked out. Jalen Johnson had that interception, the pick six. We were down in that game. We just remember we went up there with Bentley, and we were 21-0 at half and ended up losing 24-21 in COVID.
That place is like it.
Yeah, that place is just voodoo for us. So I think that's where we get our first loss.
Well, we should be used to it, though, right? Because they never – I don't know how the Pac-12 schedule never puts Washington coming to Salt Lake City, but they don't come. We always have to go up to Seattle. So maybe our guys and coaching staff are used to it at this point.
Yeah, weird. I feel like this one and USC – you know what's wild? USC – the freshmen have stepped up. I don't know if you guys have watched the highlights from USC. That Zachariah Branch guy, oh my gosh, dude. He looks clearly like the best player on the field. And obviously there's Caleb Williams. Once he's running in space, dude, good luck. Like it looks scary. So I actually think one of these games is probably a loss, Washington or USC. I felt like I was confident it was Washington before, but the receivers are really good, but I don't know if they're as elite as I thought they were. Where USC, it's the opposite, where I didn't think they were elite receivers, and they're starting to come up on the scene. Again, we'll see what they look like against playing real good football teams, but, I mean, the tape doesn't lie. They look pretty damn good. All right, going to Arizona. Do either of you guys think this is a trap game? Larry, we'll go to you first.
Yeah, down the desert's always a trap game. I think we've got Delora's number. We just confuse that guy.
Yeah.
We always make Delora do Delora things. So that's what I'm hoping and planning on. So I think we get that one.
Hey, makes sense to me. I don't think we're losing Arizona, but I think this is going to be not a wreck or an easy win like a lot of people might think it is. This Arizona team is not terrible. They're going to come. They're going to put up a fight. I mean, we're going to their house, end of season. They're going to want to play spoiler. This is definitely one we got to be on our toes. San Antonio, what are you thinking, man?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing before you said that. Is this? I kind of see this being a tough fought, gritty kind of game, similar to what we just had at Baylor. Yeah. But ultimately, I don't think they have the firepower to keep up with what we have if we stay healthy. So we take it, but it's one of those that you don't have any nails left on your fingers at the end of the game.
Yeah, I look at it a lot like 2021, the Arizona game we went and played at home. I think we won that like 31-29, something like that. It was like razor thin, and it was like a last-minute drive that won us the game. So that's how I feel too. All right, guys, in the final game, definitely one that now feels a lot tougher than it did 2 weeks ago. Colorado is coming into Rice Eccles. San Antonio, what do you think? Do you believe the hype? How worried are you about this Colorado game?
I believe the hype for who their starters are right now. Behind those starters, they don't have anybody. So unless they stay 100% healthy all year, I think we're really going to see them exposed. And that is not talking bad about this Colorado team, because they have already exceeded my expectations just watching them. They are very good, especially offensively. Defensively, they struggle, minus one cornerback who we all know about at this point, who's also a wide receiver for them. But that kid might win the Heisman in all reality, the way he's playing. But outside of that, I just haven't seen much defensively. They give up a lot of points. Their lines could really struggle towards the end of the year when it comes to the depth side of things. And yeah, if anyone goes down on that offense, they could be in some real trouble. So I think being the last game of the year, and that's kind of why I talked about that. I think depth-wise, they're going to be down, and we can handle them.
And I'm going to touch on this comment before we move to Larry Pilgrim's thoughts on the Colorado game. Dakota says, how much confidence does Nate need to show / build in the Weber game to get you back to his recruitment levels and up for you to feel better about him going forward? I'd say I'm feeling pretty damn good about Nate after last week. Obviously, you still got to see it in a full game. But I don't think Weber's going to ride or die for me. I mean, he could have a good game against Weber, and it could mean nothing. This is an FCS team. So I'm excited to see Nate against Weber, Dakota, but I'd say what Nate showed in game-winning drives on Saturday meant a lot to me, and I was really impressed. Larry, do you want to touch on that question before you talk about Colorado?
Oh, no. Nate's going to he doesn't have a lot of game reps at quarterback, so I think he's just going to get better and better and pick up on the speed of the game more. So I'm excited to see where he can end up at the end of the year. It's going to be hard to see him get a lot of playing time with the schedule. So
makes sense. Yep.
And
then, what about Colorado, Larry? How do we do?
Well, here's what's strange. I think Colorado's going to get better as a team. I am, just like everybody says, worried about their depth. Their ones are decent. Their line is somewhat decent, but I mean, if they can stay healthy. But right now, a lot of teams don't have a lot of film on what they're doing either. So I trust that we're going to have a good plan for them come game 12. And it's just hard to see them being even close to at the strength they are, because they're getting ready to go up against USC and Oregon and Oregon State. So to think you're going to come out of that without having some guys go down, I don't wish injuries on anybody, but I think we're going to get them.
Yeah, they happen though. It's part of the game. That's why everyone's talking about depth so much. Like it's an important part.
I want to kind of reiterate what I said, when I was talking about Travis Hunter playing both sides of the ball. So one thing that, Larry kind of brought up, they play all those teams right before, through the year before they play us. I don't know how you can sustain, 120 to 130 snaps a game, both sides of the ball, especially playing defense against some of these teams who they're going to put you to the test.
Yeah.
Week in and week out, they're going to put you to the test. So
when Oregon's running the ball down your throat, how are you doing at 130 snaps a game, dude? When you have to
exactly. If he can continue to do that and sustain through the year, that's kind of why I mentioned the Heisman, that he could very well win it. He is that talented athletically.
Yeah, I'm with you. When I watched that first game, I thought, oh, wow, like this could be a guy that's not a quarterback that could win the Heisman. Like he's actually got that type of potential. I don't know if he's going to do it, but he's got the potential. So that's how we all think the season's going to go. I'm with you guys a lot on Colorado. Like I said, no one's beaten Utah at home this year. I don't see it happening. We're going to do one more little question leading into the Weber State game. So before we break that down, please make sure you guys like the video. And I also want you guys in the chat to respond to the question if you'd like to. And make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, share the video. Bunch of awesome Utah Utes content coming your way. Who are the guys you are most excited to watch against Weber State? Let's limit it to 3 guys if you could. Give us 3 guys that you're really excited to watch. San Antonio, let's go ahead and start with you. Or actually, I'll go first to give you guys just a minute to just make sure you pick the right 3. I'll just go first. So one guy I'm super excited to see is Nate Johnson. I want to see him go out there, follow up an awesome performance against Baylor with an awesome performance against an FCS team, get us up. Obviously, if Cam's in there, I'm not going to mention Cam, but if Cam is in there, I'd love to see him do great. But if Nate Johnson's a starting guy, go out there, be dominant, get us up 14, 21-0, that sort of deal, or, a big lead. Let the backups come in, get some work, just look good. It'll make me feel – because this is probably the last time we see Nate for a while. And it'd be really nice to see him go out with a bang and then just kind of the rest of the season. I'm sure he'll get some Wildcat stuff, but outside of that, I think that's what we're looking at for Nate Johnson. And then another guy I'm super excited to see is Mikey Matthews. He's looked really good in the first 2 games, but I want to see him look dominant, right, which I think he really can. I really think Mikey Matthews is fully capable of doing that against this team. He's looked awesome, and I want to see him kind of look number 1 receiver-esque in this game, right? Where it's like, oh, wow, Mikey Matthews is open every damn play. Like, they just can't hang with him, which I think is really a thing that could happen. I really hope we do see that from him. Final guy for me I want to see is Spencer Fano. Spencer Fano is the left tackle for Utah, number 55. Really tough game against Florida. Pretty decent game, above average game against Baylor. I want to see him go out there against a Weber State FCS defensive line and beat dudes up. That's what I want to see. I want to see this guy show that he is deserving of a left tackle spot. He's ready to go, and that the Baylor game wasn't a fluke and that the Florida game was a fluke. So that's what I'm excited to see. All right, San Antonio, let's go to you now. Who are the 3 guys you're excited to see?
Okay, so I was going to say Cam, and Cam, but I'll pick 3 that, just because we're playing Weber State, 3 that I would like to see kind of get it going and see what they have to offer. The first one being Chris Curry. He did actually play a snap against Baylor, 1 snap. He didn't get a rush, but he did play a snap. So that tells me he's pretty dang close to getting back. We need that added depth again at running back now that Mekhi Bernard is out for the year. Unfortunately, hate to hear what happened to him. The other guy, opposite of Mikey Matthews, or in front of Mikey Matthews even, is Micah Pittman. He hasn't really done a lot for us so far this year. I see him visibly frustrated at times. I think he needs his confidence built up. A good game to do that would be Weber State. Get him back in, ready to roll through a tough conference schedule. The last guy, I was actually kind of thinking of 2.
Go for it.
3.
Who cares?
But Samote Pepa, he's been out. I really hope he gets back in and gets that one game to kind of work his legs back under him. He would really thrive against a lot smaller Weber State front. I was going to throw in a couple more, but I'll just say their names: Landon King and Munir McClain. They have a lot of potential as well. King is now a tight end, switched from receiver. McClain is a receiver, switched from tight end last year. So they have a lot of ability, and I saw some good things last game. They didn't have a big game. They didn't get a lot of looks their way, but King should have had a touchdown. So excited to see that.
Awesome, dude. Those are good ones. Some of those guys I didn't even think of. I think I considered them, but I liked yours. Those were good picks. All right, Larry, and who are your 3 guys you're excited to see against Weber State?
Okay, my number 1, he's already made the 2 deep chart, but I don't think we've seen him. I want to see Smith Snowden.
Oh,
Really good pick, dude. Really good pick.
And then I want to see Nate Ritchie out there and see how he comes about. And then there's receivers that I would like to see. I'd like to see Pittman and Simmons, but I know we're not gonna throw a lot in this game, so I'm gonna probably go with Curry as well. Randall. Sorry, not Curry. Randall. I want to see John Randall.
Yeah.
I'm hoping he gets some carries in this game. So I want to see some of those up and coming guys that we've got in the back that show a lot of promise. I want to see where they're at.
No, those are really good ones, guys. And before we get out of here, like I said, guys, please make sure you like the video. Also, comment down below, who do you guys want to see in the Weber State game? And I want to give you guys a special treat this week. Obviously, it's Weber State, so it's not the most exciting game we're going to play all year. But I've already got 4 videos lined up for you guys every day of the week moving forward. And I'm sure some of these guys will probably be dropping some videos too. So we will keep you guys fed throughout the week with Utah content. So make sure you stick around. And please make sure you guys share the video. Outside of that, we are out of here. You guys want to say anything before we get going?
Go Utes.
Go Utes, baby. Good work. I'll see you guys. Go Utes. Bye.